My name is Dawn Hampton. I am one of 12 children. I was born and raised on a carnival. We formed a family band. My father taught us all. We played the Savoy, we played the Apollo, we played Carnegie Hall. We didn't get to the Savoy until the latter days, around 50, 51. So all the things that Frankie and them talk about, I was not a part of that. But I did play there and I did dance there. But when we played there, we played opposite Tito Puente and Mongo Santa Maria. A lot of people think of the Savoy as just a place for swing dancing, and that's not the truth. There was a lot of different kinds of dancing going on there, a lot of Latin dancing, tangos, waltzes. In fact, at one time, black people knew how to do almost every kind of dance. Now, the Lindy community is pretty small, although it's growing up a bit with the Balboa and the new dances that are coming in. Years ago, it was not called swing dancing. The music was called swing. It was not called boogie. The music was called boogie. It was not called blues. The music was called blues. But now, with the evolution of the dance, all of these things are coming in. I was, like I said, I was born and raised on a carnival. So my whole experience is different than Frankie and them. Frankie and them, like Frankie started going to the Savoy when he was 13 or something like that. I was just a gleam in my daddy's eye at that time. So my whole thing is different. It's hard for me to really relate, except for what I hear Frankie say, to the Savoy. Like I said, when we played there, it was the latter days of the Savoy. We weren't there when it was the crowds of 3,000 and stuff like that. We had unbelievable crowds, but still, when the other band was playing, that's when we would be dancing. And when we were playing, that's when they would be dancing. So my whole thing was just, it was show business. We were show business. Frankie and them, they got to go to Europe, they got to go to Hollywood and all that. I didn't go to Europe until I went to Sweden about 10 years ago. And that was Leonard Restlerland that did that. I wanted to go, but I wanted to go when I was a singer. I was a cabaret performer. And I was one of the best. And I knew if I went to Europe, the people over there would understand what I was doing when the Americans didn't. If you weren't hollering and screaming in America, they didn't understand what you were doing. It's like when the people now, if they don't see people dancing like was on the Gap commercial, they don't think of it as dancing. And they don't realize the Gap commercial was done like when Frankie and them did it in the movies. They were dancing. It was a part of a show. That was not social dancing. What I try to encourage now is social dancing, because we don't have places the size of the Savoy to dance in. You can't do air steps in that crowd we had here last night. It was dangerous. So like I said, my whole experience is different. What I'm encouraging the people to do is to love more self and to look for the dancer in them so that they can take what the teachers teach them and knead it and bake the bread of dance. And it is all over the world. I get very excited when I come to places like this and see so many faces I've never seen before. So I know the dance is growing. And although there are people that said 10 years ago this dance wasn't going to last, this dance is a monster, because young people need what is happening with this dance. They need the freedom, they need the love, they need to have something they can love, that they don't have to do that to find it, you know. This is a high. This dance is a very spiritual thing. And when Frankie was talking about the people that were dancing that many years ago. When people worked all week long, all they had was dance. They were working for like no wages in order to eat, and dance was as much a part of their lives as eating at the time. So on the weekends, even those who worked, like Frankie said, people that worked, they came out at night and danced because they needed the release of the thing of the day. When I see young people now who will stand up and tell me they're bored, I tell them dance. You can't get bored if you're dancing. But they're not encouraged to do that. The young men are encouraged to be the gladiators. Football, baseball, all that kind of thing. But the young women, unless they begin to be politicians or something, and they don't get married and have kids, now they're competing with the men in the business world. So that's when I encourage them to learn how to lead in dancing, because then you can get that thing off of you that you're carrying around so blatantly. And I encourage the men to learn how to follow so that they will understand what she's been going through all these years. It's a very spiritual dance. There's a lot that's going to happen before this dance is over with. And there are people who are trying to make it exactly as it was in the 30s. And I look forward to the dance evolving, because the young people are evolving, and we have to allow them some freedom of their own spirit rather than them to be totally imitating what was going on back then. Because what was going on back then was because of what was in people's lives back then. Our lives are different now. So we have to encourage the young people to come out and express themselves, and we can learn something from them. I watch Sky and him, and I can't believe anybody does that. Now, I used to dance that fast, but I don't do that anymore. That does not thrill me anymore. But my whole life, I remember times being hungry. I remember when there was no work for my brothers and my father, and my mother and sister worked in a laundry in order to feed us. But my father was always, he cooked, he did the dishes, he did the laundry. He said, they are mine. He meant us kids. He said, it's up to me to take care of them. So it's a whole different thing now. I'm one of 12, 9 of us lived to be grown, and it never, one time did I think my father would walk off and leave us. And cats now get 2 or 3 kids and they're gone. But also the music, we heard all of this music in our house all the time. So that's when I have to admire kids to jump in to swing dancing and love the music when they were brought up on Michael Jackson and people like that. So they didn't have that kind of thing that we had. We were born and bred into swing music, or like I said, what they call swing now. And it was a whole different thing. We had a whole different thing going on. We just were very blessed, as they are very blessed, to have teachers to teach them, because we didn't have anybody to teach us. We had to watch it, we'd get it here, then we'd get it here.
Can you talk a little bit about the spiritual aspect that you mentioned of the dance? Is it something that maybe the dancers know they're getting into when they get into it? Or?
Oh no, I think that they kind of have to grow into that, because you have to realize most religions are not that head up on dance. They try to discourage it as much as possible. In fact, some kid was telling me the other day about it. Some girl goes to a college and dance. It's totally forbidden. But the way that they got beyond it is they made a dance troupe. They can't advertise as a dance. They have to advertise that they're doing show. They can't advertise. I'm talking about today. They cannot advertise social dancing in the school now, the year 2006. But years ago, our masters encouraged us to dance. After you worked in the fields all day long, that's all you had, you know. Although they did encourage you to worship Jesus, you know. So we had what they were called, sometimes they were called holy rollers, the churches where the people would get happy in the church. See, black people don't realize that was our first dance here. Our first dance here was in the churches when the Spirit would hit people and they would just start dancing. And so consequently, that dance and the music evolved into what we're doing right now. So that's really not called a heavy spiritual thing, because we were doing the church dance, which I think ended up being the mashed potatoes a lot of times. But we were doing that hundreds of years ago. But we were doing it under the auspices of the church. And the church didn't mind you doing it in church, but they weren't that crazy about you coming out and doing it as a social dance. So the spiritual thing is like here in the dance. It's like underneath the real dance thing. And so you don't have a lot of people that are that spiritual anymore. Young kids are not encouraged to be spiritual anymore. And the rap community, I think, has destroyed a lot of the spiritual thing in dance. I still am offended that they gave an award to a song about a pimp, because young people are followers and they're going to be singing that song up and down the street about it's hard out here for a pimp. Pimps are vultures and vampires. I don't think we need to encourage young people to do that. We need to encourage young people to dance so they can get that feeling. Because when you're out in that room last night, if you could bottle and sell the energy that's in that room with people dancing, it's an amazing thing. It's amazing. And now we have, like Viola brought her daughter, we have parents bringing their kids, we have kids bringing their parents. It's a wonderful thing. That's when I talk about the spiritual thing. There are people that are married who come together, and when television came in, people quit talking. And when the twist came in, people quit dancing. And now that the phone is in, we're in trouble. So there's so many things that try to take you away from where we're going. Like I said, we all have the same destination, but we're all going by different routes. So that's when the Balboa and the salsa and all that, we're all heading for the same thing, and it's happiness and it's joy. And that's what this dance is for me.
Cool. What instrument did you play?
Alto sax.
Alto. So the entire family was part of the band?
We were 9 pieces of the family, and sometimes we augmented the band to 14. We'd have extra saxophones, extra trombones, extra trumpets. 2 of my brothers played trumpet. Slide, quite naturally, played trombone. My sister Carmen and my brother Lucky and I played saxophone. My brother Duke was slide, well, Duke was like pop, he played everything. And then my sister Virtue played bass. My sister Leacher still plays piano at 91, she's still. In fact, they are about to be honored out in Indiana. My sister Leacher's 91 and Virtue's 87. And they're about to be given some kind of award. They got so many awards now. That and $1.50 will get you on the subway.
So when did you begin kind of discovering the current scene of?
It must be about 15 years at the Cat Club, yeah, in New York City. My neighbor was always telling me, Dawn, they're dancing over here. You got to come over here. And I thought she meant, and I would say, yeah, yeah, yeah. So one night she kind of coerced me to go over there, and I went over there, and it was Bob January's big band. I knew most of the cats in the band. I knew the boy that was singing with them, Roy Bailey. And when I walked in the door, I was like, I couldn't believe it, that all these people were dancing. It was just, it blew me away, because the last couple of times that I had been in a dance place, they were doing this here, and it didn't move me, so I quit doing it. But when I went in there that night, then after that I was there every Sunday night, because they had a dance every Sunday. And eventually Margaret made me an honorary member of the New York Swing Dance Society. And that was like a reawakening for me, because I didn't think anybody was doing that dance. And to see all these people out there, not all old people, not all black people, it had nothing to do with age, it had nothing to do with color. It had to do with the people were having such joy, it was unbelievable. And like I said, if you could bottle that and sell it, we'd be rich.
How similar or dissimilar were the dancers at, say, the Cat Club versus some of the dancers you saw at the Savoy?
Well, there are people that think that everybody at the Savoy danced the same way, and they didn't. I know 4 or 5 fellas now that used to go to the Savoy, and they all danced differently, including Frankie, and including Calvin Johnson, and including Iceman, and including Flo. They all have their own thing. And now, there are not many Skies, there are not many Manus, but a lot of the people, because they go and take lessons, they are more similar than the people were then. Everybody then had their own thing. They did their own thing. The air steps and things, like I said, they were for show. And they had a corner called the Cat's Corner, where they would go and they would do that. But if you ever see the movies, and you see the Cat's Corner, and you see a few people around it, but you see in the background, you see people just dancing. And that's what it was. People were, like when they had a contest, all the people would be very up in arms about it. But the people weren't that great about standing around and watching other people dance. They wanted to dance. And so consequently, you would see Frankie and him over in the corner, but you'd see the other people out here dancing and doing what they wanted to do. I encourage the kids in that now. I say, you know, go take the lessons, but come out and put you in it and dance, because that's where you're going to find your freedom. If you're going to worry about the steps, which a lot of them do, then you're not going to find the joy that's in this dance, because they really, well, I've got to do a triple step, I've got to do a kickball change, I've got to do a, so it's not as free as it should be. Of course, you can have no freedom without discipline. So you have to learn the basic step, and then you take it and run with it, as they say. But we don't have a lot of radio stations playing this music. They're fighting for some reason or other, playing this music. They got a station out in Arizona. I was just out in Arizona. Best station I've heard in years, because they're playing Sinatra, and they're playing Basie, and they're playing Bobby Darin in Arizona. I can't find it in New York. New York is so square. They think they're so hip. And they took WNEW off the air, and they made it WQEW for a while, and then they changed that. So the young black people have not heard a lot of this music. So it's hard for them to, like we go places now, every now and then we'll go some places, and we'll start dancing, and young blacks will say, what's that they're doing? Well, what is that? That's amazing. This is supposed to be the so-called Afro-American dance, and the Afro-Americans don't have a clue as to what it is. So we really, when I come to these places, and I always thank the people for doing it and feeling like they're a part of history, because I think that they are, because one day they're going to talk about places like this. Just like we're talking about the Savoy, they're going to talk about these happenings, these weekends, these workshop weekends and things. They're going to have to bring it up because this is what is keeping it alive.
Name some of your favorite artists, musicians.
Musicians, Wycliffe Gordon, and he's going to be playing for my birthday. Wycliffe Gordon really is my favorite because he's not only a musician, he's an entertainer. And that's how we were raised. You know, we were raised not only to play, but to entertain the people. That's how Pop told us was like our job. And then there's Junior Mans. And then there's Houston Person. And there's George G's whole band, you know. And there's a band that was there Saturday night at the Savoy thing, City Rhythm. They love to play for dancers. How could I not love them, you know? But a lot of the real big musicians, the Wynton Marsalis's and Miles Davis and those people, I was never into those people because they were not into us. See, when I figure like, if you're not going to play for dancers, I'm a dancer. You know, I go out every now and then to just listen, but not that much because I can go to a club. There are a lot of clubs in New York, the Blue Note and places like that, where they have music all the time. But I don't get to dance as much as I'd like to. So when I find people that really love dancers, I have to love them in return. I talk to the kids about supporting live music. But in New York, it's hard. Of course, now George and them are going back to Swing 46, but you know the size of that dance floor there. It's postage stamp, you know? So when I go out, I don't need a cat stand up on stage playing 92 notes, you know? I went to see one of Count Basie's last performances at Carnegie Hall, and the place was jammed. My accompanist took me. I was sitting in the back row of Carnegie Hall. And Count Basie came out on stage and played 3 notes, the famous Count Basie 3 notes, chung, 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 and Carnegie Hall went. Such a groove that, again, like I tell people, you don't have to play a lot to swing. If you got that thing, it swings. I was telling people in the meeting yesterday, I said, you know, I think they named swing after a swing. It goes like this. But with what the jazz musicians are playing now, it goes like that. And now they call it jazz. See, they don't really, none of them admit to playing swing, because they're really not playing swing. But years ago, Pops Armstrong, the cats used to laugh at him. They thought he was a clown. But he loved his audience, and they loved him. So this is what I get now from Wycliffe, from Junior Mans, from Houston. I get this love, because Houston will tell you, I can't do it if I'm not moving them. And that's the way I was raised. If I didn't move the people, then I was missing something, you know. And who was it, Tito Puente? They said he used to go look through the curtain before they would start to play, and if he saw a lot of gray heads, he'd say, it's a 2 for tea night, kids, because he knew that's what the people knew and that's what they wanted to hear. So he was an entertainer. It's a whole different thing. Like Frankie now is an entertainer. I'm an entertainer when I hit the dance floor. Stephen Mitchell is an entertainer. We dance because we love to dance, but I also know what to do to those people. I know what to do to get their attention. The young people now, think that the only way to get their attention is either with air steps or kicking the legs up. You can do that if you want to, but it's not what a lot of people want to see. You know, they want to hope that they can do what you do. And that's really not the way that I dance. A lot of people say, I want to dance like you. But I am, without a doubt, the laziest dancer in the world. And most people don't know that. They'll say, Dawn has this way that she stops. And I tell them, Dawn is resting. You out there jumping up and down, and Dawn is resting. So it looks like I plan. Every now and then, I'll just, as they say, cool it. I'll cool it. And so when musicians used to play years ago, when Count Basie would do that, even the cats in his band didn't realize who this cat was. They didn't realize who he was. They talk about, we love to play in that band, but you get them out now while Count is not there to keep them contained, and you get them out there now and they're doing all that, you know, because they don't realize the rhythm section is the heartbeat of the band. That's what my dad used to say. He said, and if the drummer isn't keeping straight rhythm, then the band is not working. When the drummer goes, blah, 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 he said, would your heart beat? What would happen to your body if your heartbeat did that? So the rhythm section years ago was called rhythm section. I don't know what they call them now because they don't keep the rhythm. Each one plays differently. Each one has its own thing. So when you're out there dancing, you have to dance with the person that you're dancing with in order for it to be, to me, for it to be social dancing. Anything that I say to you is totally my own thing. I'm not trying to change anybody's mind, and I'm not going to let anybody change mine. I'm old enough to have an opinion about something. But there are a lot of people who are out there now who want to try to make this into something else. So that's how West Coast swing came up. And they don't realize the West Coast swing came up because they were on such small sound stages that they had to dance in the slot because they couldn't do swing outs and things. So then, because it was done out west, then they call it West Coast swing. But a lot of the music that they are dancing to, I danced to that music years ago. Years ago. They act like they think it is their own, but it's a part of what music was. All the cats, Jackie Wilson and all those cats, they danced. We danced all that years ago. So somebody asked me the other day, he said, Dawn, do you think that they're writing music like they wrote years ago? I'm a songwriter. I got a closet full of stuff. But the people that run the music business don't want to hear that because there's not a big enough market for it. If you take your CD to a record company now, they want to know, can you sell me 50,000 records? And the way that, because George G's band, they come in on the chart, I think about 20 or something like that. And then it just went downhill because it'll sell in Europe, but it won't sell over here. Because the people in Europe are really into the Afro-American thing. And when they talk about it as the Afro-American dance. I call it the American dance because we took bits and pieces from the so-called white man, and that's when we started dancing together. We were imitating him. So that is one big step toward evolving toward what we're doing now. But my people, and I use that term loosely, they are still, in fact, a boy told me one time he didn't want to swing dance because it was Uncle Tom-ism. I still don't know what he meant by that. But one day, black people are going to say that the white man took this dance away from them because that's who's doing it. And I tell them quick, you threw it at him and he caught it. So you can't say that.
Where do you think the separation began, where African Americans started to drift away from
The twist. All dances drifted away. The twist was such an easy dance that anybody could do it. And so it really took over the dancing. And then the big bands had dispersed because of the war. When they came back, there weren't a lot of places for them that could afford them, which is the same thing now. Duke Ellington was one of the bands that just kept right on through the whole thing. And they asked Duke, how do you keep a big band going now? And he said, I'm making an offer they can't refuse. I pay them. So money he was making from his records and music and things, he paid the band because most places could not afford to pay a band that big. And his band is still going. I don't know if it's going under that same rule or not, but that's how he kept his band going. And even with the Count Basie band, they broke up for a while, and then now they're coming back again because with this dance community is bringing back a lot of stuff. The Artie Shaw's band is still out there. I don't know if the Dorsey Brothers band, I think they play every now and then, but they don't have the following. You know, well, you have to realize a lot of the older people are dying off, and they need these young people to replace them to keep it going. But we lost it when the twist came in. We really lost it. And then they started, what do they call this, you know, when they're out dancing now? They do this strange thing. It's not hip-hop, it's not hip-hop, it's before hip-hop. And it would be room loads of people just not dancing together, like he danced over here and she danced over there, you know. We for some reason or other, didn't want to dance together. So we got away from each other. Now, it's slowly moving back together again, but not in the black community. They still are not doing it. See, it hurt me when they tore down the Savoy. I wasn't even here at the time, but it hurt me because I felt like it was a part of black history, and they were tearing down the black history thing, you know, but my people didn't fight it. You know, I think they could have had it declared what do you do when you declare something? And they didn't do it, and I thought they should have. And now we have a problem with finding places big enough to dance in New York, because the landlords, if it was a big bar, they cut it in half and they rent out both places, you know. The Alhambra is not that big. It's pitiful, you know.
It used to be a lot bigger.
Yeah, but the walls, well, listen, it was a lot bigger when we were there the other night than it was the first time when they first redid the place. The dance floor was only about this big. That was, what's his name, Bill Cameron's dance. That was his dance floor that he put over the rugs, because they put rugs and stuff. And I couldn't understand it. I said, this is supposed to be a ballroom. And Frankie was telling us how far the place went back where the band used to be and blah, blah, blah. So when they redid it, whoever redid it had never seen the original, you know. So I don't think there will ever be in New York another Savoy. Roseland is a joke, you know. It doesn't have the feeling that the Savoy had. I don't know if we'll ever do that, but I'm hoping that we will mutate into something else. You know, maybe not as good, but in the same direction. So when I hear Frankie and them talk, and it blows my mind how much we have lost over the years. But we are regrouping with the new dancers that are coming in. And so I tell people now, in fact, I have a girlfriend who was pregnant, and she played Count Basie for the baby. She said he was always dancing, always. I said, I believe that, because that kind of music, it makes you feel good. It really makes you feel good.
when you do you give talks at these Lindy Hop events, and you say you don't teach Lindy Hop, but I think what you do is a lot harder to teach than Lindy Hop, which is how to be musical.
Yeah,
and
musicality.
To listen to the music. What do you want? What are you trying to convey in front of a room full of kids?
I'm trying to help them find the dancer in them. I'm trying to let them know that just because they are Caucasian, which was said for years, which a lady whose name I won't mention used to say they jump up and down like a bunch of frogs. And so that's when I'm trying to encourage them to believe in themselves as dancers. And that's when I say, let go and let dance. I'm trying to encourage them to want to love the self in the dance, to love the music. I don't know how you could do this dance if you don't love the music. But most of these kids don't get to hear the music, so how can they get to, unless they come to these weekends? Because it's not being played in the home, it's not being played on the radio. And so I'm trying to be the key that unlocks the door, that opens up to dance. And it's not that hard for me. A lot of people, like you say, you think it's harder. But teaching steps is what the average teacher does. But I talk to the kids and I tell them, if you only learn the steps, you're only stepping. But when you feel the music and you love the dance, then you're dancing. I have more people walk up to me and say, you changed my whole way of thinking about this dance. Because they go and they take lessons for years and somehow nothing is happening. But when I tell them, you can love this, you see a lot of faces go, oh, I can love this. I don't believe this. Because they're not taught that. But I encourage that kind of thing. Because to me, without love, this isn't going to happen. For the young people that are doing it, it's not going to happen. They have to love it. And we're not taught a lot in this country about love. You know, even you get married because your people tell you who to marry. Or you get married because you both work in the same place. But with this dance, love is very much a part of this dance. And that's where, to me, the spiritual thing comes in. And that's what, to me, a lot of these people can love this dance. They can go out and dance. They don't have to want to go to bed with this cat. He don't want to have to, well, I'm going to take her out and buy her a couple of drinks. So they don't have that with this. It's such a thing here that it's almost unbelievable what I see happening out on that dance floor. Of course, we haven't really taught how to walk over and say, may I have this dance? Because I'm guilty of that myself. I look at somebody and say, come on, let's do this. But we're working on all of this. We're working on it. When you see people who are good dancers watching good dancers, that's great. That's great, because I see when you hit the floor, I see Sky and them sometimes stand back and just go. And of course, when Sky hits the floor, it's the same thing. And Ben and Frida and all of them, they're phenomenal. And these are young people. And Sky, in fact, the first day that I got her, and Sky said, I love this dance. He was just, because he had danced in New York on the weekend. And he was flying. He was just flying. And a lot of the young people out there are flying. They're flying. I don't dance as much as I used to, because when they bring in Balboa music, I get off the floor. And I can Balboa, but it just doesn't move me, so I don't do it. But there's going to be some other dances come out before we know it. as we're dancing, somebody else is thinking something else. They're going to be creating other things. We may do them, and we may not. But you have to move on with our brains are computers, you know, and you get a certain thing in there, and it goes, you move your mouse, you get to your cursor, you know, and that's what we're doing with dance. We're moving the mouse, we're getting the cursor, we're writing in the address, the ID, and all that. And that's what it is. Everybody's got their own ID out here. And it's encouraging to me as to what is happening with the dance. When I see Sylvia Balboa, Sylvia's phenomenal. And she doesn't say it, she's got to recognize it. But she doesn't say how phenomenal she is. Because I watch her, and I watch other Balboa dancers out there, and you look at Sylvia and just, no comparison. See, that's when I laugh when people tell me about how much they like what I'm doing. I'm not doing a lot of anything. I don't dance to fast music. I'm a very lazy dancer, but a lot of people don't believe that you can look good dancing that lazy. So, but I realize, like I said, I'm an entertainer. Like I said, the name Hampton, there's no misnomer there. I'm a ham. I'm a total ham.
I'm just going to jump back for a second.
Okay.
To the issue of, because you sparked something in my mind when you mentioned that the way where swing dance existed back in the day versus, and as far as the African American experience versus now, it's almost as if people are trying to, how can I put this? Where people were, where the African American people were when Lindy Hop was created. You said it was very spiritual. It was church-based. You know, there was family-based. Do you think now it would be very difficult? I don't want to shape the question.
Yeah.
But now it's a different experience for people.
Yeah.
Is there something that people can do now that would maybe capture some of that feeling, or
You're going to have to.
outside of
I'm going to say it. Yeah, I'm going to say it. You got to go back to your churches. You really do. You really have to go back there to get the whole spiritual thing that will connect to what we are doing now. We are not nearly as spiritual as we used to be. A young girl came up and talked to me yesterday. She said, people don't even bless their food anymore. And that's a habit with me, you know. And it's a small thing to some people, but we were taught that. That was a part of our upbringing, that you didn't put anything in your mouth without thanking the higher power for it. And so that is our church thing. I used to see, when you people like Spike Lee and them always thank their grandmothers, because it was grandmama that used to take you to church and take you to Sunday school and talk to you about a God or about right and wrong. And although that isn't dance, but it has a lot to do with what you feel, with honoring older people, younger people. I see young people out here now, what they say to their parents is awesome. But when we were going to churches, our whole spiritual thing was different. And we don't have that many young people that are, unless they get really, I hate to use the term crazy, unless they get really involved in these heavy religions. Young people are not that not that spiritual. When you hear girls out in the street cursing and young men, and hear the rap records and things and what they say on them, we've lost a lot of our spirituality. And to me, we lose a lot of it in our dance the same way. So we got to go back to spirit. See, because when you realize the music that is playing now, we had gospel, because that's what they used to sing in the fields. And then it went to the blues. And then it went to what they call New Orleans jazz. And then it went to swing. And now it's back to jazz. And now it's to rap. We have come through a lot of things. And as we've come through it, we've dropped off certain things. We've lost certain things about the spirit and about, see, because a lot of people don't even think of dance as spiritual. I happen to know that it is for me. It's very spiritual. But I also, like I said, I bless my food. I bless myself. I bless myself when I'm out walking. I pray when I live in New York. I pray when I leave my house and I get back home again. You know, and most people are totally unaware of this kind of thing. And I'm saying most people, and I mean that broadly, white, black, green, or whatever. So we lost a lot in our growing up, or in our finding my space and all that. When I see women who are leaving their kids because she wants to find her space, years ago, and of course they say, well, yes, but a woman, she has to have her freedom, then don't have babies. It's very simple to me. Then you can go out and do what you want to do. But that's really not, don't do air steps on that dance floor. You know, one thing treats the other. So I think once they really get back to their roots, their true roots, then the dance is going to improve. It's going to improve. Because, you know, they used to have, whenever your family had a big meal, somebody had to bless that table before you ate. And it was usually the oldest man or the oldest woman. You had to bless that food before you put it in your mouth. And a lot of people don't think of that anymore, you know. And to me, it is very powerful. Blessing anything, blessing anybody. I tell the people in the meeting, in the book it says, love thy neighbor as thyself. Well, how can you do that if you don't love yourself? And we're not taught to love ourselves. So that's another spiritual thing where we have lost. You know, but the people are still worried about slavery. I cannot go back and change that. I am a product of that. But also, it's the mixing of life that made me who I am today. And then I was teasing the girl that I danced with in the meeting yesterday, because she knows Splanky like we do. She knew all the breaks. We danced together. And I told her, I said, you must have been black your last lifetime, because she was doing it. She was doing it. And of course I was kidding, because it has nothing to do with anything. Because there were blacks sitting out there that still don't know Splanky or anything like it. But we really have, we've had a lot on our plate, but we were not the first slaves in this country. There were bond slaves here before they ever brought black slaves over here. They brought black slaves over here because the American Indian did not bow down well. He didn't act good, so they had to get somebody to work the fields. So they put him off on the reservations, and they brought blacks in here to do it. But our whole church thing, you have to realize, comes from the white man. Because we didn't worship Jesus. We didn't know Jesus before we got here. We didn't worship any of the gods, or the angels, Michael and all those people. This is all supposedly the white man's thing. Because we were worshiping Chango and Yamala and Obatala and Ogun and Ochun. We had all of our own gods. But since we have come here, like I said, we mixed theirs with ours, and we came out saying, hallelujah. We wasn't saying that in Africa, please, come on. But now, when you see Stephen Mitchell teaching all these Jewish kids to talk about hallelujah and Jesus, then you know it's got to be something right going on in there. Because they forget that they're supposed to be worshiping Moses or people like that. They're just howling and screaming and carrying on and having joy.
So you do a lot of traveling?
Somebody asked me that yesterday. I must go out about 7 times a year. 7 times a year. I spend the most time in Sweden, and I come here. I go to swing out New Hampshire. Last month I was in Arizona. December I was in Dallas. I'm not out as much as people think. I'm no Frank Manning.
But you do get to see a lot of dancing.
A lot of dancing. Yeah, a lot of dancing. Aren't they going to do a thing back in San Francisco? I think Elliot said something to me about it. Because we used to go there every year. And that they moved, so.
So what do you think? Where are we, how's it look? Where are we going? How does it seem?
We're going straight up. We're going straight up. If you see that crowd in there, last night, it's well, you were there when we did the thing in San Francisco, and they first had Barbara Morrison there, and they had 600 dancers. It blew my mind. I was so happy, and it was phenomenal. 600 dancers in that place. It was really, it was enlightening.
They had 1,200 at the base here.
Wow. Wow, but they didn't have, they couldn't get the people in Alhambra. They had to cut off. People were calling from all over wanting to come, and they had to refuse them. But then the thing in Sweden is growing every year. And I understand that this year they had more people here than they've ever had before. So it's growing. It's growing. It can't do anything but get more positive. Because for every person that dances, if they tell somebody and they tell somebody and they tell somebody, it's like an amoeba. It's just stretching out.
Tell me a little bit about your reaction to the Savoy 80th anniversary party that you just mentioned.
The one that last week?
It just happened, yeah.
Well, Saturday night I was ecstatic because I love city rhythm. When we got to the Alhambra, I don't know who the DJ was. And I'm waiting for Basie. I'm waiting for Chick Webb. Here we're talking about the Savoy. He didn't play no Basie. He didn't play no Chick Webb. He didn't play no Duke Ellington. I said, who is this cat? You know, if we're going to do it about the Savoy, then let's take the music that these cats played. He was playing some rinky-tinky stuff. I didn't dance at all when the DJ played. I danced when the band played. The band was cooking that night. They were cooking. And then I loved the young people to come out and did the dance. Then the old folks come out and did the dance. And that was a good feeling for me. That was a very good feeling for me. And for me to look around, see, I didn't know most of those people because they were not at the Savoy when I was there, but Frankie and Norma knew all of them. They'd say, oh, there's so-and-so, and there's so-and-so. And I understand that Elliot got like 100 people that used to dance at the Savoy. You have to realize that's pretty phenomenal, that they're still out there dancing. But one woman told me, she said, we don't get to dance that much because there's no place for them to dance, you know. So you figure that they've got the Alhambra. If they had a dancer once a month, it would help, you know, to keep it alive. But they're not encouraging that kind of thing. Because the whole thing about show business now is it is business. It's about this. And so we don't have any what do you call them, people to give up money for you know, to keep a place alive.
Like a sponsor.
Yeah, sponsors or angels. Yeah, we don't have them anymore. And we probably could if we pursued it, because they can just write it off their income taxes. It's no big deal. But the most of the people there that were dancing were saying, I haven't danced in years. And a lot of them don't know about us downtown. They don't know about Frim Fram, you know. They don't even know about Swing 46. So they don't know that it's still going on, like I didn't for many years. But most of those people were older than I am. And when they say I haven't danced in years, but they were out there. They were out there. That was one of my greatest impressions, was to see all these old people out there dancing. Just dancing. That's a pretty phenomenal thing. It's pretty dressed to the nines. See, that's one other thing. The kids nowadays don't like to dress up. Jeans. I remember if you put a pair of jeans on a black kid years ago, he would freak. Because he said, that's farmer clothes. I don't wear that. Now it looks like 1984 when you look out on the dance floor. Everybody's got their jeans on, you know. But we loved to dress up. You worked all week long, so when you went out on the weekend, you dressed up. These people will go to an opening of a Broadway show in shorts. So it's all different. Those ladies were dressed the other night, honey. They were dressed. The men had their suits on, ties, and them ladies had on some, a couple of ladies had on their Sunday hats, you know, them hats that black ladies wear to go to church. They were dressed. I was very excited about that night. I was very excited about it. Because it just, to me, said, yes. Yes, it's happening. Yes. And I felt good about it. I was as disappointed as Elliot that they couldn't get more people in there, because I had people call me, and of course they all, well, you got some pool. I said, no, I don't have any pool there. Place is too small, and so they got, what did he get? Did he get 300 in there?
Close to.
Yeah, because he wanted 4, yeah, and they wouldn't let him have it, because they said that fire laws or something were not allowed to be. So there were a lot of people that wanted to be there, be a part of that, and they couldn't. But they were there Saturday night. Saturday night was hopping. It was hopping. And like I said, I love that band. But it was Sunday night that was about the Savoy. And I did not like the DJ. Mm-hmm. So I was kind of upset with him, because I got the feeling he didn't know. You know, they said the Savoy, he didn't know anything about it. He was playing the music that he plays every place else, you know. And I'm waiting for Splanky and Duke's Place, and I'm waiting for all that, and it wasn't about to happen. So that was my impression. I can't say they could have done it any different, but I think they could have used a different DJ.
Cool. Yeah, you can, if you want to ask one more question, if there's anything else, or you have time.
Final thoughts.
Your final thoughts, anything you want to share?
Yeah. Anything you can
my final thoughts are, this dance is growing as we speak. I'm only worried that politically we are incorrect. I'm afraid that when people find out that there are this many people who are having this kind of joy, it doesn't speak well for a lot of things that are going on in this country. So my thing is, I encourage all the people, bring a young kid with you. You know, bring your nephew, your brother, play this music for young people so they can get to hear it. Because the little babies, everybody's baby that's here, when they hear this music, they just start dancing. They can't help it. And so I think if we can just start introducing the music to the younger people, as the older people die off, there will be younger people to take their place. And that's what we need. We need younger people interested in this. And like I said, I think it's happening. As we speak, it might not be happening with the speed that we want it to, but it's happening. We are happening. We are the happening. Like I told somebody the other day, when the Martians come down here, they want to talk to the swing dancers. Because we're happening. You get this much joy any place, and everybody's going to want to know about it. Everybody. My thoughts.